for being here for this session. I'm really excited to have this conversation with all of you. I want to, for this session, talk to you about an important problem that I think we all need to address, and it's a problem that will face us for the future. So, the problem that I'd like to discuss today is the problem of antimicrobial resistance. This is a challenge that is of huge public health concern and is something that is slowly starting to get attention, but there's a lot to be still done. Uh, if you look at the magnitude of this problem, by 2050, an estimated 10 million deaths per year are expected to be caused due to microbes resistant to antibiotics. Uh, as you can see, right, it's a huge problem. And the problem is because of antibiotic resistance, which makes antibiotics ineffective. So basically, what this means is over a period of time, when we use antibiotics and when we expose the different bacteria and different pathogens that cause human infection to these antibiotics, they start to become ineffective uh, in killing these infections. And these can cause a big problem because not being able to cure infection doesn't just apply to scenarios where you're trying to treat an infection, but it also starts to become more crucial for life saving procedures like chemotherapy, surgeries, transplants, etc. So, all of these scenarios are at risk. And if you're someone who contracts an infection due to a bacteria which cannot be killed by an antibiotic, then you can suffer some serious illnesses. To think a bit more about this, imagine this world where our most powerful weapons against diseases become powerless. Well, it's already here. It is antibiotic resistance, wherein you are finding a lot of uh, infections and infectious agents like bacteria becoming resistant to drugs. Now, when you think about it, the main solution for tackling AMR and antimicrobial resistance is something called good antimicrobial stewardship. So, on the next slide, I'll talk a bit more about what is good antimicrobial stewardship. Now, in the scenario of infections and antimicrobial resistance, what happens often is there is an indiscriminate use of antibiotics. There is an inefficient use of antibiotics where you're taking the wrong medicine for the wrong disease. So, it is to address this, you need a good stewardship approach, which is what we call as a good antimicrobial stewardship. And within this, there are six different aspects. The first one is about responsible prescribing, where there is more control on what antibiotic you're giving for what infection. The second area of good antimicrobial stewardship is limiting inappropriate use of antibiotics. The third area of this is customized treatment, where you know exactly the variant or the specific version of the infectious agent or bacteria that is causing the infection so that you use the right antibiotic for that variant. The fourth aspect is around infection control. So, which is around making sure that you have hygienic practices, you have cleanliness around you, and you're making sure that from a public health point of view, you have the right mechanisms in place. The fourth aspect of good antimicrobial stewardship is a cross sector coordination. So, when you think about antimicrobial resistance and think about the different parties involved, this includes pharma, who is developing antibiotics. This includes clinicians who are administering antibiotics for patients. It includes public health officials who are regulating the usage of antibiotics in the public health system. And finally, it also includes overall, health infrastructures which need to support the use of antibiotics and the treatment of infectious diseases. So there's a lot here, even in terms of cross-sector coordination. And finally, a key part of good antimicrobial stewardship is ensuring that there is a sustained access to antibiotics. What I mean with ensuring sustained access is if you think about our journey with antibiotics, it's about just over 100 years old. And a big spurt in the development of a lot of new antibiotics happened in the 60s and 70s. And ever since that, we've had like very few new antibiotics coming out into the market, and even the funds being invested into R&D for antibiotics is quite low. Keeping that in mind, a key aspect of good antimicrobial stewardship is also making sure that there is sustained access. We are continually developing new antibiotics and bringing those into the market so that patients can be treated. So, to summarize, this is the core of the solution for tackling antimicrobial resistance, but there are problems because it's not sustainable. Now, if you think about what makes antimicrobial stewardship sustainable, the core of this is misaligned incentives. So, for example, if you take the example of a pharma company which is producing antibiotics, the incentives for them is to produce these antibiotics, bring them out into the market, generate revenue, and then feed the profits from that revenue into developing new antibiotics. But if you think about the problem of antimicrobial resistance, what you want is not overuse of antibiotics or a lot of sale of antibiotics. Instead, you want a more controlled and a more thought through pragmatic use of antibiotics. So here there is a misaligned incentive. Now, this also correlates with the second part, which is the no economic incentive. So this limits the interest in pharma to invest in developing new antibiotics. The third aspect is overprescription preference or pressure. So doctors are incentivized to prescribe a lot of antibiotics because you have patients coming to you and then they're not able to get treated very quickly and they want a quick solution. Then what do? End up prescribing antibiotics, and then that further resulting in or misuse or overuse in some cases of antibiotics. You also have the cost burden because when you want to then manage the healthcare system in light of the additional cost due to the antimicrobial resistance, there's a huge overhead for health systems, especially if you think about low to middle income countries, which are quite resource constrained. So there's a huge burden also to antimicrobial stewardship, which makes it further an unsustainable process. So overall, right, there is a lot of issues that plague or that limit or prevent antimicrobial stewardship to be sustainable, and making it, overall a challenge that we need to solve to be able to then solve the problem of antimicrobial resistance. Now, in this session, I want to talk about a community called microDAO. It's early stages. We're still building the team, so more than welcome to reach out to me, and would love to get more people involved. But the goal for microDAO as a community is to build a set of tailored tools for good antimicrobial stewardship, and then making these tools available for key stakeholders uh, who can benefit from those tools, and in turn uh, implement good antimicrobial stewardship, and then finally use the revenue that is generated from the uh, from the use of these tools to fund the next generation of antimicrobials. So I show this briefly here in terms of how this would happen. So the expectation is that we have a set of tools that are created by the DAO. These are used by public health officials, pharma, clinicians, etc. And in return, they generate revenue which goes into the DAO and adds to the treasury. And this the funds that then get generated are then disbursed to fund research projects on developing new molecules or new antibiotics. So the idea here is the community comprised of token holders would then vote on the proposals that are coming in for new antibiotics, and based on the voting of these projects, you can then fund the most promising one, or the community funds the most promising one. The idea is that this generates IP and FT, which upon commercialization brings back revenue into the treasury, and then this money is again further used to build more tools and fund more projects. The big picture here is to make this whole process work in a super sustainable way, to a point where all of these can be self-sustained and can become a model that we continue to use for the future, because the problem of antimicrobial resistance is not something that has an end date, because pathogens will always develop resistance. There'll always be a new variant that you need to treat. So the only way then that you can do this is if you make a process that addresses it and fights to defend us, a sustainable one. And that's the goal, and that's the hope for the community. Uh, from this session, I think so the time for action right is now. And there's a lot that we can do here as a community, as a microdAO. And today, I'm looking for some help and discussion on building the initial community. So before I proceed further, are there any questions that I could address? And then I can talk a bit about what will happen in the next 20 minutes. Okay, so what we'd like to do in the next few minutes is carry out a small exercise. There are four key outcomes that I would like to achieve. Let's see how we progress. And Esquire, please, I know you have the eye on the time. Please tell me if I'm overshooting the time. Uh, I want to do four things. First, I want to work with all of you and map values that would drive the different community segments. I would like to then identify key personas or types of people who would best suit the different segments of the community. Then I'd like to think of what could be interesting events that the DAO should do so that we can ensure that there is a flourishing community. And finally, from conversations with all of you here who's watching, understand what kind of a roadmap should be the aim for the DAO to make sure that there's a like a 6 month, 12 month, 18 months into the future, we are still building a very sustainable community. So I'm going to switch to the Miro board here, and I would request all of you to join. So the first session is about the first part of this session I'd like to explore is the value mapping. So what I'll do in the next couple of minutes is let me just share my link in the chat here as well. Yes. So in the first, to begin with, I'll first describe what I see are the key community segments or segments for the microdAO community. So at this point, I see this as a combination of the core team, which I expect should be about 3 to 5 people, partners and advisors who are in the 5 to 10 people range, um, a vetted community initially, which can help create that initial culture of the DAO, and an open community, which is much larger and something that happens in the future. So, in the first exercise, what I'd like for all of us to do is take a look at these four value drivers. Uh, that would drive engage or that would drive people to be part of of these different community segments. And with your help, I'd like to mark these stars and assign them to the different community segments. The goal is, let's do this for the first let me put in a timer. Let's aim for about 3 minutes on this, and the idea is, well, 2 minutes, that should be fine. So you can pick as many stars as you want, and you can assign more than one for each of these segments. And then finally, we can have a look at, we can do a bit of voting as well. Is everyone able to access the leaderboard? Yes, now you should be able to use it. I realized I had grouped it. So this part here, which of these value statements do you think applies to each of these community segments here? The core team, the partners, the vetted community, the open community. So the four value statements that we're talking about are purpose, product, people, and profit. Let's use this section here. To me, it seems like purpose is something that would drive the core team members. I probably also think even for partners and advisors. Anyone here who would like to comment? Lauren, Kevin, please feel free to jump in. It's super informal. Would love for you to be on the mirror as well, Kevin. If you aren't already there. Yeah. Would love it. Yes, yes, please. Yeah. You can choose more than one star, and you can assign more than one star for each of these. So what I'm trying to do is in this part of the exercise is to understand what are the values that drive each of these segments. Yes, there are four values here. The idea is uh, which of these, it can be more than one, drives each of these community segments. Yeah. Let's give it another minute. Uh, my question is more flipped in the sense that imagine you are a member of the core team. What would, which amongst these four value statements would be the key driver for you? Okay. But the four values in front of you are product, purpose, people, and profit. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. So, the goal of this exercise pretty much was to understand what drives each of these community segments. I see suggestions here that the core team would be driven by profit. I see partners and advisors would also be driven by profit. Um, I'll be sure about that. Okay, right. Thank you so much for the feedback here. Now let's try to do something. Let's move to the second exercise. Escobar, how much time do you have? Okay, all right. Then I will try to wind up here. Then Escobar. Thank you so much. So to cheers. Thank you. So, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to me. I think what I want to leave you all with is a message about the problem that we are trying to solve here as part of microDAO. It is the problem of tackling antimicrobial resistance, and it's the problem of making sure that we can make good antimicrobial stewardship sustainable, and in the long run, build a community that can, in a sustainable way, protect us and help us build mechanisms for dealing with the next big pandemic, which is all very likely to be due to drug resistant pathogen. Thank you so much. Have a good day.